Alright, so today I'm going to be doing another support build, but it's going to be in a bit of a different vein. I got a lot of requests for, now that Underground has officially launched on PS4, what I would recommend for, a good build to complete that content with people that you don't know, so you can augment your team nicely, you can support them, and get them through the Underground content without wiping. Now, what I'm using, and I'm incorporating some feedback from a previous support build where I had 4-piece tack, but I was already up over 44,000 skill power, and everyone was kind of saying that, once you get to that, high a level of skill power, there's no point in having the 4-piece tack bonus because getting to 80k doesn't do anything. You've already capped out all your skills at the max bonus. There's no real advantage to having that. So I took that into consideration, and this is a changed form of that build. It functions very well in PvE, and it's going to augment your team nicely, and like I said, you're going to be able to help carry your team through PvE content, especially in the underground heroic missions, procedurally generated stuff. Now, you're not going to be soloing this stuff, you're not going to be killing stuff super quickly, you are not the primary damage dealer, but you're going to help your teammates do more damage, you're going to keep them alive, and you're going to make sure that the content goes smoothly. This is one of the more guaranteed ways to make sure that you complete the content, is running a really solid support build and knowing how to use it. So I would recommend this for players that do struggle to find, good teams. If you fulfill that support role to a high degree, and not a lot of players are doing that right now. A lot of people are all like, I'm the main weapon, damage dealer. I'm going to rush in there. And they all get smoked completely by a shotgunner, and they're useless to the team. So if you can keep those players alive, despite the fact that they're running in there and not making the best decisions, if you can help them and you can compensate for their poor decision making, you can get your team through the dungeon and you can do really well. So this build features 3-piece tack, 2-piece blind, and the vigorous chest piece. It also features an M1A with skilled and an L86 with self-preserved, but I didn't actually have enough firearms to tick off brutal. And then I think it's vicious in the third slot on this L86. Yes, vicious in the third slot. So I'm going to talk about my 3-piece tack, I'm going to talk about my blind, I'll talk about my vigorous chest piece, I'll talk about my weapons, then I'll talk about talents and skills, I'll throw it to my character sheet really quickly, and then I'll show some gameplay in which I am supporting a team of random match-made teammates. So starting off with my backpack, it's very important to roll skill power on your backpack. I have this tack authority backpack. It's not a perfect thing. I am all about showcasing builds with non-min-maxed gear sets because it's not realistic that everyone is going to have all 268 pieces. I have a massive library of 268 gear pieces that I draw from in order to create these builds, and I specifically choose to put in some 240s or some 214s, or just to make sure that not every portion of the build is totally min-maxed. I think it's more realistic. I think it's more fair to an average casual player to see a build like that and to see how it functions without having spent, hundreds of hours in-game farming all the different things. So I've chosen to go with this Tactician's Authority pack. Very high skill power roll, not that great of a stamina roll. I mean, 666 is okay, but I would prefer something in the 700s. If you can get a 268 version of this backpack in the 700s, that's great. That's much better. The skill attributes aren't going to be something that's helpful for me. Turret duration and sticky bomb damage I'm not going to be using. I would prefer something that augments heal, specifically first aid ally heal. That's going to be really important, but I didn't get that. Or something to do with pulse, since I'm choosing to run 2-piece blind and the pulse skill. But, it's not integral to the build. The skill attributes are more of just a side, an afterthought when you're going through after the build is created and saying, okay, can I reroll something? Could it be a skill attribute? The most important thing is to have all your primary, major attributes and, main stats all set up and squared away. But after that, you can think about skill attributes. Now, in the mod slot, I have firearms with signature ability resource gain. I'm kind of taking the best of both worlds with the recent, signature ability build that I did, which is receiving a lot of really positive feedback in the community, and I'm really happy about that. I believe it was actually mentioned on the front page of Reddit for a while, so that's really cool. I feel really flattered that that's the case. I'm going to use some of the mechanisms from that build in this build, and I'm going to specifically be using the Medical Wing Revive signature. So I'm using a firearms mod to achieve 2260 is what I believe to unlock Deadly on my M1A, and I definitely want that, but outside of that, I don't really need any more firearms, so I'm prioritizing electronics and stamina after that. And I have signature ability resource gain to help me get back my medical wing signature really quickly, which means I can revive my teammates when they make those poor decisions. So that's my backpack. Moving on to my gloves, I have Tactician's Authority gloves, marksman rifle damage, damage to elites, and critical hit chance. I think that these are very important. I would actually prefer, if you're going to use this in PvP, then you want, instead of damage to elites, critical hit damage. But this, to me, primarily is an underground, progression build, and I think that a lot of players are going to get that and use this for that purpose, especially with, on PS4, like I said, on the second underground launch. That was 2 days ago. So this right here is it's a good roll on gloves for that, a high electronics roll, allowing me to achieve the skill power that I have. Marksman rifle damage to allow me to do at least some damage. I'm not going to be completely useless. I believe I crit routinely for about 500,000, 500,000. That will allow me to drop a lot of things quickly, and I will get the headshots to proc skilled on my main weapon and take advantage of the skill signature ability resource gain mods in my gear. So this isn't a perfect set of gloves, but it works. Sticky bomb damage, again, not relevant. You're definitely going to want to prioritize first aid ally heal with this build. That's going to be a big part of keeping your teammates alive. So then moving on to my holster, I have a attack authority holster. It has armor and sticky bomb damage. Now with all this bonus sticky bomb damage that you can see here, I totally could run something like BFB sticky bomb, or even perhaps if I were to be able to cap out the the third mod, I forget what it's called exactly, but the proximity fuse, there it is. I could run proximity fuse sticky bomb if I were to be in a PvP situation because I have all these skill attributes stacking up, but I'm going to showcase this today in PvE only. I'm not really going to show PvP. And a lot of people have been asking me to do more PvE content because they say, you know, on your live streams every day, you're doing PvP all the time. That's great and all, but, you know, there is this whole other side of the game, and so I am going to cover that right now, specifically talking from a support standpoint with this build. So that's a good holster. Always important to roll armor on your holster in the major attribute slot, 100%. That and your chest piece specifically. There's no better thing to roll there. Now this holster is also 240. Again, not fully min-maxed. I could get much better rolls on both electronics and firearms, like way better, well over 100 extra. And I've got a 240 though, but I don't actually have a 268 attack authority holster. I haven't actually checked my stash, but you know, this build is functional using some 240s. And a lot of people have a lot of 240s still, especially with Underground just launching now on PS4. Maybe people don't have all 268s yet, so this is a more realistic concept. Now I'm going to move on to two-piece blind. I have the knee pads with 18% critical hit damage and a very great firearms roll. I have increased kill XP, not very critical. Smart cover damage resilience, which is kind of nice if I am going to run smart cover. And one change that you can make and note right now is that switching out the two-piece blind for two-piece anything else that you want, could be Final Measure, could be Hunter's Faith. Anything that you want to run to go in a different direction is totally fine. The two-piece bonus is the most flexible, you know, aspect of the build. And, you know, if you want to do that and you take out that two-piece blind, then I would actually suggest moving from, you know, Pulse to Smart Cover. So something that augments Smart Cover is going to totally work well for the build if you choose to go down that route. I recommend critical hit damage since you are still trying to be relevant with your main, you know, DPS, especially on your M1A. You do want to be able to get those headshots with high damage critical strikes. So critical hit damage, a large chunk on your pads, is definitely going to be the way to go. I do have firearms pads here allowing me to unlock 2260 firearms to unlock Deadly on my main M1A. So that's why that's there. And then the minor attributes really aren't going to be relevant to this at all. Now moving on to my mask, I have a good skill power roll there. I have a really great stamina roll there, allowing me to achieve the 421,000 toughness. Now a lot of people will say, you know, it doesn't really matter 300 to 400 to 500 even 1,000 toughness against NPCs because you will just get dropped just as quickly. I noticed a slight difference. I agree to some, you know, to some extent, but I also think that having well over 400,000 toughness, or at least partially above that, is the way to go for PvE content. If you're down at like 200,000, then you're relying solely on your allies' smart cover or your own smart cover. And with 421, I can tank at least a couple rounds of shotguns. I can do, you know, some decent damage while face tanking just a little bit. And it allows me to do pretty well, especially when coupled with booster shots. So I would recommend getting over 400,000 toughness unless you really are freed up to dedicate yourself to just dealing damage or to just having skill power by your team composition. And this game is much better utilized in a team. So I would say check out the Facebook group below to team up with other agents. Solo is not going to be as much fun, but this build, you know, can function from a solo play perspective, just nowhere near to max potential. If you're going to play solo, you definitely want 4-piece sentry, but that's, you know, that's an entirely different video. So this mask right here has the skill power, burn resistance, not relevant, pulse critical hit chance, very nice for this build, very, very nice. I wish I had more of that, but at least I have one gear piece with that. And then down in the mods, I actually have firearms with skill power. Now, if you're not going to get the signature ability resource gain with this build, I would recommend skill power as the role on your mods aside from the main stat. Pound for pound, it's very effective. It's going to increase the, you know, the effect of your heal. It's going to increase the effect of your pulse or your smart cover, whatever you're choosing to run, and it's extremely, you know, potent. Now I'm going to move on to my vigorous chest piece. Right here, this allows me to use booster shot instead of my overdose, which is really great for my teammates. Not only does it give them a damage boost, but when they're being reckless and they're running in there without thinking about how fast they're going to die, I can actually give them a bonus to mitigation as well as the damage they're dealing and a full overshield because I have such high skill power. And the radius on the heal is very nice, so they can stand in it for longer periods of time. It will double proc pretty much every time. Very nice as well. It has EDR and armor on this chest piece. Very important to roll armor. Can't stress that enough. And then pulse duration. My pulse has 100% uptime. Whenever I pulse before it's actually, you know, non-active anymore, and the NPCs will remain pulsed that entire time, it will be up again. So I have 100% uptime with a nearly max pulse, and this is going to allow me to help my teammates get through the content faster and easier. Both of the mods are signature ability resource gain, just to make sure that I can get my medical wing signature back often and revive people routinely, especially when they're going down and being reckless, like I said. So moving on to my guns, I won't talk very long about these. My M1A has Deadly, Prepared, and Skilled. Skilled is in the 3rd slot, so it's free. Prepared is not active, and I don't really see a reason to have it active because in the underground, you're very rarely going to be 40 meters or more away, if ever. So that's not something you need in the UG. Deadly is nice to have. It helps me do larger critical strikes, so I do have that active with 2260. As you can see, just barely 11 over 2260 on my main stat firearms. So from there, I'm going to move on to my L86. I don't actually use this in the video, but this is my secondary for close quarters encounters. I have self-preserved on it, which is really cool. I do decent critical strikes with pulse up, especially to targets out of cover. As you can see, 28 damage to targets out of cover. So when I do crit, I am healing for a decent amount. Brutal is not active. I couldn't quite get the firearms requirement there, but someone with a more min-max version of this build could, and that would be very helpful. And then Vicious in the 3rd slot. Very important to make sure you have a good talent in the 3rd slot since it's free. So I have that active and at full health, which I'm very easily achieving, especially when in, overdose. I'm in my overdose from booster shot with, that damage mitigation. So I'm going to stay, and my overheal is potent. It's going to absorb a lot of damage, and Vicious is going to be active through the entire fight if I choose to use this L86. So moving on to my abilities, I have, Pulse with Tactical Scanner. That's a given because of Blind. The blind bonus of 20% is actually reflected in your attribute stats here. So as you can see, I'm nearly maxed out. A 38.5% critical hit chance. That's going to help most of my teammates achieve crit cap. They're almost undoubtedly going to be able to do that. And critical hit damage at 91.9%, damn close to 100%. And overall, it's just going to give them a massive boost to their DPS output. Now couple that with booster shot. As you can see, 39,000 for self-heal and then 54,000 for ally heal, which is much better. Now, if this heal does double proc, that's over 100,000 HP regenerated in a split second. So booster shot functions very well with this build. I'm capable of dropping that down on multiple of my allies at the same time and regenerating their entire health bar and giving them a full overheal. So my utility is very high. Then I also have Recovery Link. Some people may shy away from this and say you have to always use Survivor Link. I don't think so. I think that this is actually valuable because if they get out of position and they're being dumb and they run up into a situation where they get wasted and they fall over, you can just pop this as soon as you see that, that cross pop up and you know that they're down, and they'll get right back up. And there's actually a few frames of invulnerability during that time. And if they're on point, they can actually start firing their gun before they're actually standing up. And it's a really complicated thing to do, but if you get in chat and tell people, as soon as you go down, I'm going to revive you instantly, start firing your gun, you can actually work out some good strategies where someone, when they go down, can actually be invulnerable for a couple seconds, dishing damage during that time where they're reviving, and probably get out of the situation scot-free. So it's all good, and I think that this is a very valuable skill when used correctly. Moving on to my talents, always running triage with this, because when you heal an ally, whether it be with, your booster shot, or, with Combat Medic. I'm not actually using Combat Medic, but that is a viable change. I'll talk about that in a second. It's going to give you the cooldown reduction for you and them. And with, Triage allowing this to proc multiple times on one character, running in and out of heals on the ground, it's just a blatantly overpowered skill, and I think everyone should run it. Critical Save allows you to, not just with a med kit, it's actually been confirmed that this works with all healing now. So if you're at low health and you pop your booster shot, you're not only gaining the 15% damage mitigation from booster shot, you're also getting the 40% from critical save, and you can become very tanky for a long period of time, where you can actually face tank things like shotguns, and they're not going to be able to drop you, and you can heal right through it. So very important to run critical save. I run strike back since I'm already running cooldown reduction from the 3-piece tack. I have skill haste. I think it's important to have this. Not necessarily, hyper critical to the build, but the 20% is going to be very valuable. And when you're using this properly, and dishing out more booster shots to your teammates, it's going to be really nice. And then I have One is None. Since with my M1A in particular, I am always aiming for the head. I do use One is None. Now, if you don't want to use this and you don't run Pulse, it's very good to run Precision. That means you can pulse targets with your M1A on cue, and you're freed up to do that if you're running something like Smart Cover, and you'll still get more bonus damage. So that's my talents. I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to scroll through my character sheet really quickly. This is my M1A right there, and then moving all the way down, you can pause the video if you want to, just to take a look at any of my specific attributes, but that's about it. And now I'm going to move on and throw it to some gameplay. Okay, so as you can see here, we've just started an underground mission. The shotgunners are on top of us. One of my teammates did go down. and died fully, so I couldn't pop my recovery link there to get them up. But we do end up dealing with these shotgunners, and that's thanks in part to the fact that I can still deal damage if I'm landing headshots with my M1A, and my booster shot is going to help the entire team quite a bit, especially because I have high enough skill power to fully take advantage of it. So once I get him up, we actually start to progress through the mission. As you can see now, I pop recovery link as soon as I saw that he went down. We can't be wasting time walking back and, reviving people. All that does is increase the time it takes to clear the dungeon. So if I'm using recovery link whenever someone goes down, I'm preventing another one of our agents from having to go over there, kneel down, pick him up. That's just more time that nobody's dealing damage, and it's just a detriment to the team overall when people are going down. And that's where recovery link really shines. Especially when 2 or 3 of your, fellow agents go down and you pop that, it can be a game changer. It can totally save your party from wiping, especially if you're in a situation where you can't quite get to them. If he had run up in front here and died and I had recovery link up, that would just be so critical because I would not be able to run up and get him. And if he actually went to a fully dead state up there, passed through the down state and died completely, that would be even worse. And having recovery link just allows you to constantly revive your teammates. That's one of your roles with this build, is reviving your teammates when they make bad decisions. You can still do damage. As you can see here, I'm actually one of the ones dealing the most damage right now. My teammates die pretty constantly right here. But, that's fair. I didn't actually have my microphone. I wasn't tuned into game chat with them. I was in a party with my friend. So that could be on me. I wasn't communicating very well. And it's important if you have a microphone to always tune into game chat and make sure you're on the same page with your teammates. Even if they don't have a microphone themselves, just log in there and just make sure that you're talking. You're saying, okay, I'm going here now, I'm going there now, because odds are they can hear you even if they can't respond. So that's actually partly on me. I wasn't communicating properly, but in the end, we did make a go of it, so it was totally fine. Now, I do about 0.5 mil crit, per shot, and I constantly have pulse ready and up and ready to be used again. So that's nice, and I can help, carry us through this dungeon. Now, with skilled on my M1A and the fact that I'm using a few mods that have signature ability resource gain, I can actually get my signature ability back very quickly. As you can see, I used it at the beginning of this encounter, and I'm about to have it back right there. It just came off cooldown. So that's really nice, and I can use it, on the fly pretty much in every single fight. I can't use it multiple times during the fight like I did with my previous signature ability, gain build, because that was, designed solely to be using the signature all the time. This is kind of a hybrid. It takes the best of both worlds. It's a jack of all trades, and I think it's really effective in the right hands, but, you can't actually, rely on constantly having your signature like you could with that previous build. The underground dungeons do get really repetitive, and one of the things to note is that on heroic, it just seems like every single time I queue into a heroic mission, I get LMB and there's shield carriers. That just seems to be, for whatever reason, the constant. And those do take a long time to kill. But again, that's where it comes back to booster shot. Percent weapon damage bonuses, and as you can see right there, I just revived my teammate who died in a bad spot. He died right in front of a shotgunner. If he had actually gotten fully killed, that would have been really bad. As soon as I saw him go down, I said, okay, can't afford that. That's really detrimental to our team. Let's pop recovery link, get him back up, and now he's helping us out and doing some decent damage. So recovery link comes in clutch a lot more often than I think people realize. Now, the shield users are an ammo sink, so for whatever reason, they've opted to make heroic, underground missions pretty much only LMB across the board, which I don't like, and I think it's really badly, programmed, but that's what we're faced with, that's what we have, so anybody going into underground, just be careful with the waste not, want not modifier. These guys soak just massive amounts of damage, so if you're going to put modifiers on, I'd say steer clear of waste not, want not. Maybe even steer clear of mad skills too. Running all five modifiers on a heroic is actually a sufficient challenge for any team because, things like this where suddenly there are 3 or 4 heavy shield users and you have to down them. If you're not coordinated, like very well coordinated with synergistic builds, it's going to be very difficult and you're going to waste a lot of ammo. That's probably the most difficult thing we encounter in this run right now is the fact that there are shield users and for whatever reason, my teammates aren't doing massive amounts of damage. They're doing passable damage for sure, and especially when I help them with my pulse and the booster shot, they're going to be doing much better. So that's, I'm fulfilling my role there, but, they're not doing just huge amounts of damage, so it's a little bit slower. I clearly don't think we have anyone on the team running Sentry, so just to harp on that a little bit more, if there's no one in your team running Sentry, you probably shouldn't be doing the hardest content in the game. Sentry is the premier tool for completing that content. You need to be marking targets, and you should always get on the same page before you start out hard content and say, okay, well, is at least one of us running a Sentry 4-piece build? Now, it doesn't even have to be a good 4-piece because that's a debuff on the enemies, and as soon as you get those marks off, the whole rest of your team is going to be doing 52% increased damage to them the entire time. So that's really, really nice, and I think it's pretty much critical to doing the hardest content. But if you're in a situation where you're matchmaking with randoms like I am right now, and you don't have a sentry user, something like this current support build that I'm showcasing is going to be really helpful because you can up their damage by about 15% with booster shot routinely, and you can keep them alive. So despite the fact that it may be a little bit slower, they don't have the damage to kill things lightning quickly like some of my teammates Jay Castro and Hoof do. We're a well coordinated squad. We've played together a long time. So these guys have probably just met each other. I'm not really talking on the mic, so that's my fault again. But you can help out and you can make sure that the content goes a little bit smoother and a little bit faster. So another thing is shooting these packs is going to help tremendously with the shield carriers. I can just never seem to do it. I always shoot the pack and nothing happens, and then someone else shoots it with one bullet and it lights up like a popcorn sack, and I just don't really understand why. But hey, life is what it is, and you can do your best to light that up, and that'll be a huge advantage. They'll dance for the entire duration, taking massive damage. So that's really nice as well. That's going to be about it. We did go on to actually, it's kind of funny, we went on to actually wipe in this because what happened is I ran in to a squad of shotgunners and I wasn't paying attention. And when I died, the rest of my team fell soon after. So I claim responsibility for that, and it's my own fault. But if I had stayed back the way I should play with this support build, we would have been A-okay. I could have mitigated the shotgunners' damage. We could have progressed through while I buffed my teammates, and overall it would have been really good. So I got a little bit out of line, and we died because of it. And that's a little bit fitting because as a support player, you should know your role. You should know to stay back, and you should know that the team relies on you being smart because you need to clean up after your teammates' mistakes. That is what a support player does. Now, that's going to be about it. Just to throw the build back up on screen for anyone that's interested. I am going to cover a couple of links. The Facebook community in the description below is going amazing. We have a really great group of admins. We have a really great group of agents there. And if you do play solo and you want to find a more dedicated group that you can synergize with and complete content faster and easier and get more fun out of the division, I would strongly recommend going to the Facebook page. The link is in the description below. Second is that in our transition to making this a full-time job and producing more content, we would love anyone to support us through Patreon. That would be really great. It will never be required. I can't stress that enough. We will never require monetary, compensation of any kind. We will continue to do everything that we do for free and pump out the best possible content at the fastest possible speed for you guys. But if you do want to support and you think the content's great and you want to, help us out, that'd be much appreciated. Third is that the t-shirt link is in the description below as well. We celebratory, t-shirt that we're printing for 10,000 subscribers, which we've now blown well past, but those will be permanently discontinued after this, so definitely check out the link below. There's not much time left on those, and that's another really great way to support the channel and help us upgrade hardware, which means we can stream in a higher definition, we can transfer over to different platforms, we can do a lot of different stuff, and we're expanding at a really great pace, and it means a lot, and it's all thanks to viewers like you who are supporting us. So I appreciate that greatly. All of us do here at Upper Echelon, and as always, guys, have a nice day.